We are recently coming to the anniversary of the Tulsa Massacre over 100 years ago. And it's uh it's disheartening, of course, and sad that something like that happens in this country or any country where a whole town is burnt down, people are murdered, justice doesn't prevail in those situations. It's disheartening to know that people were terrorized to that point as they were then. Even though part of the backstory was, even though they were terrorized, the citizens of that town, they people did step up and they fought back as best they could. But it's just a reminder, how things were then, which was 100 years ago. And someone might say, well, that was 100 years ago. But it's just a reminder of people today. It's just a reminder, because when you have history like we had then, like the Americans had then, this is American history. People try to erase that history. And the problem is when people try to erase history, then they're not held accountable. And then when they're not held accountable, they'll repeat themselves in a similar history, terrorizing people, hurting people, denying, a certain existence. And they'll do it knowing that no matter what they do, they won't be held accountable, and they could deny that history later. They can lie about it. You see that in politics, even today, in particular with the Capitol insurrection, just a few months ago, where people are trying to deny what they did. They're trying to deny that it exists. They're trying to deny the harm that something like that could do. People just think they could deny it away, but you can't. Man could deny it. Man could say things don't exist, but life will bring it back to form. This is 100 years ago. This whole city in Tulsa was destroyed. Fires, over 300 people were killed. Businesses destroyed. It goes on and on. But here we are today talking about it. And we're talking about it because it was so awful and that there was no accountability. But it's like a tool for us today. I was listening to Biden talk, and that president is amazing just for this country. But that situation is just a tool for us to learn and grow from. Because the challenge is that people want to say, here we are in 2021, and they want to say that was 100 years ago. Slavery was so many years ago. Jim Crow laws were so many years ago. Civil rights and voting was so many years ago. And they say today is the day. We're a different time period. And though we have grown in technology, though we have grown in our knowledge and our understanding of things, there's still a mindset of people that are the same. And we have to, as Americans, be aware of this mindset that people have. And it's a reminder to us, and this mindset is of hatred. This mindset is of jealousy. This mindset is of destruction. This mindset is of superior or inferior. There's this mindset that doesn't change. And so we have to be aware of this mindset so that we can continue to understand that you're always fighting. You're always making a stand for good or for justice or the betterment of yourself, your family, or this country. You're always doing it. You look now in the year 2021, and here we are so openly talking about voter suppression in this country. It's confusing why we are currently talking about voter suppression. Why are people even engaging in voter suppression and trying to do it? Because there's no consequences of their actions. There's no accountability of their actions. They think they can justify it, lie it away, explain it away to their advantage, and then put it on all of us American citizens. This kind of talk, these kind of strategies have been going on for generations. Just like with the recent Tulsa Massacre. People think they can explain away, or they try to hide it, or they try to pretend like it didn't exist. But it did exist. It existed in the heart of this country. It affects us all because we're all Americans. This happened in our country, all of our countries. This pain, whatever it is. The thing about when you look at discrimination and racism, it doesn't just affect underprivileged groups. It also affects privileged groups. Because underprivileged groups, for sure, they have a certain amount of pain and so forth when they experience it, but they can endure. After you go through it long enough, you learn to endure. After you have that pain long enough, you become stronger. You become almost immune to the pain. You recognize the pain, you understand it's there, but you almost become immune to the pain. And then you start to find yourself and you start to find your flow. You start to understand, okay, this is a situation I'm in, but my life still is amazing. And it's amazing because I'm going to make it amazing. It's amazing because I live in this planet that God created. It's amazing because I'm going to enjoy other attributes that man has created. This life is amazing. But what happens with a privileged group, when they get in the habit of discriminations, particularly at the point that happened at the Tulsa Massacre, is that instead of building for themselves and building for their country, they get into this mindset of destruction. That the only way they're going to have more is to destroy. And when you destroy someone else, or you destroy something, you're actually destroying yourself as well. Because there's this idea psychologically, intellectually, that gives us an understanding of life that brings us true joy. Life is limitless. Even though we're suffering, we have struggle, life is limitless. And it's limitless not because of what you have. It's not because of the job you have. It's not because of what somebody gives you. Life is limitless because of your own mindset and intellect and how you view the world and how you think of your circumstances. That's what life is, limitless. Nobody can give you that. You give it to yourself. But at the same time, you gain that by how you treat others. You gain that how you respect others, how you respect yourself. It kind of opens your mind up. But when you have this idea of destruction, idea of hate, idea of bringing down, those kind of things, then you automatically close the door on yourself and on your own intellect, because you can't operate in a free intellect when you're trying to close the door on somebody else. Life won't allow you to do that. Spirits won't allow you to do that. God will not allow you to do that. You're not a free person. You may have privilege, you may have more in the form of materials, possibly. You may have a power in a sense that you can put fear upon another human being, possibly. But it ends there. You're not free. You're suffering. And this is why when you see somebody else that does well, like with the massacre, the Tulsa Massacre, where people were doing very well, they were very successful, they were happy, They were wealthy in their own sense. So when people see that, because they're limited in their own intellect, that type of seeing their fellow man in that situation hurts them. And they feel like they have to act, and they feel like they have to destroy. This massacre went on for 24 hours. But I just wonder, because the underprivileged, they survived it. They survived that. Somehow they survived that. I know the Red Cross jumped in, they helped each other, government helped for the most part. So they survived it. But what happens to that person who destroys, who kills in those situations? What happens to them in their life? What is their mindset like? Because I'll tell you, there's two people inside of us, and they're not even people. There's the spirit you that's having this experience, this human experience, as they say, and then there's the ego you. And they're separate. And the spirit you that's inside of you, that's having these human experiences, is always talking to you. That's the thing that gives you guilt. That's the thing that unsettles you when you have an experience, when you do somebody wrong or what have you. You have this unsettling guilt, or that's your intuition is telling you this is not the right thing to do. This is not going to work out right. This is your karma. Your spirit you will not allow the ego you, the human you, to do these things to other people. Because the ego us, the human us, we see differences in each other. But the spirit us, we're all as one. We're all as one, not only in all spirits, they're in all humans having this experience. We're all as one. We're not different. The spirit us. But the ego sees us as different. So when the ego tries to separate, then there has to be a lesson there. And the spirit you that's inside of you is going to make it uneasy for you as it's teaching you the lesson that we're all as one. We're all together. So when we have these experiences, when we destroy people, when we destroy property, when we injure one another, hurt one another in this way, even though your ego is celebrating because you think you did something, you destroyed something, the spirit you is not celebrating with you. The spirit you is going to make your stomach tingle. The spirit you is going to bring about guilt upon you. The spirit you is going to weigh you down for all the days of your life for what you did, even though you are with other egos justifying what you did. But this is why the experiences that happened with that massacre, even though 100 years ago, most people have moved on, they died. But that still lingers on today because we need to learn from it. We need to continue to learn from it. We can't hide it. If we had not just brought it out, not hid it, discussed it, helped, then we wouldn't be suffering today, all of us. All of us that sees that, and I don't care what culture you are, you're suffering. You're suffering because you cannot believe that someone even have lived through it, let alone that somebody created that upon another human being. We're all suffering. Whether we admit it or not, we're suffering. And the healing through this is having a discussion, bringing it out in the open. Like our president did. President Biden brought it out in the open. He's talking about it. Though a lot of us knew about this already. But we need to talk about it. Not blame, not point fingers. We need to talk about it. Because what we like to do as a country, all of us, we want to pretend, and I mean all of us, that things are just fine, perfect. We want to do that for a couple reasons. One, we're afraid. We're afraid. What if it isn't the same? What if racism and all those things still exist? We're afraid. We don't want to know that, especially after all the stuff that this country has been through. Civil rights, and all these periods where we fooled ourselves. We don't want to, face that and admit, man, it's been there all along. Really? We don't want to do that. And then the other reason, we just don't want to face ourselves. We don't want to face it that, these are the things that we did as Americans. We don't want to face it. We don't want to own up to that. That's why we try to put time and space in between it. But it's time now. It's time just to recognize it. Not to blame, not to point fingers, but it's time to recognize these things that people in history try to hide from one another. There's no hiding. Life will not let you hide. It's going to come up. Sooner or later, it's going to come up. So we might as well just face it. Face it, heal as a nation, and move forward. It needs to happen. And we need to always be aware. As we move forward, be aware, because things could happen again. At that level, I don't know, but things could happen again. Something like the Capitol insurrection, that should have never happened. People should have never got to the place where they thought they can do that. And then afterwards, people want to deny why they were there, what they're doing. There's no denying. We saw you. We heard you. There's no denying. We need to stop denying and pretending. People think that they can do things and they pretend it doesn't exist and not be accountable. People need to be held accountable for what they do, whatever harm they do, or good, to someone else, another culture, or this country. So the thing is, we're all Americans. So when you rise up to hurt one American, you just rose up to hurt us all. Or rise up to hurt one group, you rose up to hurt us all, because we're all Americans. We all play a part in this. There's no separation. We're Americans. People want to separate each other. There's no separation. There's Americans. And we need to have opportunity, safety, goodwill for all Americans. Here we are in 2021, and we're still talking about it. That's why some people in some cultures are tired of it, because they know the history. They know the history and what people have gone through. They know how they suffered silently through one situation after another that we don't tell each other. And then here we are doing it again. So we need to get things out in the open, have these discussions, as many discussions as it takes. Openly have these discussions and move this forward. I heard Biden say something interesting. He said a lot of things interesting, but I heard him say something interesting, which is, he said, America is not as competitive as we once was. And I found that interesting, because as great as this country is, we're only going to be as competitive and as amazing as all of us citizens. You start holding each other down, you start lying to each other, you start trying to do things like voter suppression, where voices and votes don't matter, then you hold down your own country. You hold down yourselves, you hold down your country. I don't get the end game of this voter suppression, except selfish reasons. And for those selfish reasons, you're holding down country. All country. Not just the people that you try to suppress. You're holding down all country because you want to win, because you want to vote. It's not good. And it should not be acceptable for any American. We should see it for what it is. And we should all stand out. There's too many Americans that are just silent. They silently, even though they feel a certain way, they're silently just waiting. They silently sit back. They're silently watching to see what happens. We can't be silent. We can't sit back. We can't wait to see what happens. We have to get involved. Now, it doesn't mean you're marching in the streets. You don't have to do that if that's not you. But we have to get involved. You have to figure out a way to get involved. Make your voice heard. Make your money heard. Make who you are heard. Whatever it is, you do something to make a stand. Because when you don't make a stand, when you don't speak up, that's just like that's just like you're siding with this other side. By being silent, it's almost like you're agreeing with the wrongs that are going on out there. Because you're not resisting. The wrongs need to be resisted. This massacre happened over 100 years ago. And today we're still dealing with stuff. We're still dealing with stuff. We have to resist it. Somehow we resist it. Somehow we make a stand. Wherever it is, it could be your company, it could be with your family, it could be in your church, it could be in your community. I don't know. We all have these gifts. There's something that you can do to make a stand. We got to make a stand. So anyway, so just want to close up by saying, with this Tulsa Massacre, you can see people today doing wrongs on its citizen, on this country, on this judicial system, in politics, and they think, I feel, that they can do this because next week, next month, all they gotta do is deny that they did it and pretend like it didn't happen, just like with this massacre. We can't let people do that to us. We remember, we hold them accountable. This is how we're gonna make the change. Change is already happening. It's already here because of our mindset and our intellect and what we know. But nonetheless, the battle continues on. It's not a one and done. It's never one and done. You're always moving forward. I don't care how tired you are. We're all tired. I don't care how sick of it you are. We all get sick of it. But you got to keep moving forward. That's all I got for you. Peace and hope, everyone.